to George Russell will be licking their lips. There is the lanky frame of George Russell just stepping on and making himself look even taller than he is, stepping up on the weight scales at the back of the garage. They will love these conditions. Lewis won in the wet last time out at Silverstone. He'll be relishing these conditions because it calms down their Achilles heel, which is overheating the rear tyres. And a quick final thought on Max Verstappen. He won't mind these conditions as well. He's been a tenth or two off Lando Norris over single run pace, but it could change, and you never know what Max can do in these conditions. He's always quick. Right, Simon, that is about it. I will need to deploy the emergency poncho from now on. It's starting to get even wetter down here.
Stay with it. There we are. Well, if you're going to do it, put it on.
I don't think that's going to hit so much.
He said Max was saying.
A bit further back in the grid, then you also love these conditions because it gives you a chance, a shot at doing better than actually the car deserves perhaps today. So maybe even at Mercedes you might be pretty happy because it seems that when conditions are perfect then you just don't really have a chance this weekend. But with the next example of qualifying someone like Lando, this is not what you want. You want to try qualifying because you will be so awesome.
As we said when we started this weekend talking about Sergio Perez, actually yesterday on the long runs, looking good for Stuart was saying it was an encouraging day for him. On Saturday to get talking of Achilles heels, that's what's been for him. You're doing a good day today, Kimberly.
Yeah, yesterday we were talking about how this could be his breakthrough moment. He might be able to make a comeback. He was quite close to Max all day yesterday. And then today that's sort of turned around completely this morning. And we know that he does have a full package of upgrades that Max does this weekend, so there might probably be a bigger difference with them here. He does have quite a lot of them. He just doesn't have the bodywork stuff, so no side parts as well. But yeah, it's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I think he's got that right about there. Going out now on a big challenge. I think it's untread territory this weekend. Yesterday was so hot. Now it's wet, and on top of that, we've got a tailwind. I mean, it's been like the air has moved around here. Now you've got some wind as well. So
Much cooler temperatures. It's noticeable, isn't it? It's been bright blue skies the last couple of days, and clouded over this morning. It stayed like this. And the rain at the moment feels like it's, yeah, I mean, it could start to stop at any moment. Underneath the lorry, it feels like it's easing slightly. Where's the money then today for you, Nico, now that we've had this last-minute change of conditions?
The money has to do with McLaren, but I wouldn't even say Lando because also Oscar in the end put in an incredible lap. So both of them have a shot at it, and then the outsider is Verstappen.
I would say the same thing. I mean, they're clearly the ones who put the money on here, but these conditions could absolutely change everything.
Just going out to the track and assess those conditions for himself. They've been the favourites in the dry. It's not dry at the moment. Qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix is next.
Welcome everybody to the Hungaroring. It is time for qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix, the 39th World Championship Hungarian Grand Prix, and round 13 of this, the longest ever Formula One season. And where yesterday the only water problems affecting the drivers was due to sweat, in sweltering temperatures, the rain has come just in time for qualifying. And this is going to be a very, very different experience to any that the drivers were predicting some 48 hours ago. Full throttle, 58% of the dry here, 2.72 miles long, 2 DRS zones, 14 turns. You never stop moving the steering wheel from turn 5 all the way down towards turn 11. The dry tyres, and we should get to use them, C5, C4, C3. Some teams have saved 2 sets of the soft compound tyre to try and help them into Q3. But I think we're going to be starting off with the intermediate tyres because it's been raining here for the past hour or so. The wind has dropped, and whilst the track is not exactly deluged, it is very damp indeed, Martin Brundle. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, definitely wet enough to surprise and challenge the drivers and teams. I saw one particular engineer coming out of the motorhome with it, putting his hands up, like, where did that come from? And where indeed did it? I mean, everyone's been frying most of the weekend so far, and suddenly, as you say, track temperatures have plummeted. And it's raining reasonably hard out there, but I agree with you, as soon as it stops, because this track carries a lot of temperature as well through the day. When it has been sunny at some point, it will dry very quickly indeed.
30 degrees, the track temperature. It was 60 degrees yesterday. That is a massive swing. And for the drivers and the teams, conditions they have had no running in whatsoever in any of the 3 practice sessions, 2 of which were led by Lando Norris, who in the dry looked the form horsepower in this race, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. The McLaren is looking very good. So they were 1 and 2 this morning in the final practice session. They do not need any nasty surprises with the weather, but that's what they're going to have to cope with. Officially, it's known as a change in climatic conditions, low grip conditions, it says here in front of us, and that is exactly what they're going to find when they get out there. And traffic is going to be a huge problem in Q1, the first part of qualifying, when all 21 runners will be out there, knowing that their last lap will almost certainly be the fastest. But as I said, you know, when you're carrying nearly 30 degrees in the track anyway, and the teams are allowed to dry their own pit box areas, you're not allowed to add any grip per se, but Ted is down there.
Thank you very much, Martin. Yes, the local climatic conditions, as you say, low grip, it says, it's actually easing up slightly. So the intensity did get worse or heavier about 15 minutes ago, and it is easing up. But everybody is waiting. And you know the question is, what dries the track quickly? The answer will be 20 Formula One cars. So you might be able to hear in the background, all the cars have been fired up. Certainly the ones I can see down from Haas to Sauber to RB to Williams. And everybody is just waiting. There are a load of mechanics. I think you can probably see out your commentary box window, Crofty. The load of mechanics to see who is going to go first, and then they're going to react. So it's just going to be a tactical game of being on the right tyre at the right time. It's right on the bubble, I would suggest now. Right on the bubble between Inters and Slicks. I wouldn't be surprised to see either. But wow, I mean, Martin, when you were doing the pre-show, you had that classical music playing in the background. Budapest, of course, one of the classical music capitals of the world. We've had a dramatic overture. What's going to happen in the first act?
Well, we're about to find out. The computer now says, and of course it will always be right, normal grip conditions. We see slick tyres going out there on the Haas and the McLaren, so they think there's no point in wasting time on the intermediates. Let's try and get a lap in. But as I pointed out earlier on, when you're carrying 30 degrees Celsius in the track, it will dry very, very quickly. And again, as Ted says, on a relatively short track, 20 cars will burn a racing line very quickly too.
I did see a flurry of activity in the garages with the tyres being taken off and new sets being put on. So rather surmised in my mind that we were going from inters to slicks, and the cars that are coming out all on the soft compound tyre. So let me whet, if you'll pardon the pun, your appetite even further and tell you that Q3 here last year was the equal closest top 10 in Formula One history, just over half a second separating the top 10 match Brazil in 2003. And in this season of seasons of Formula One, given the amount of challengers that are queuing up behind that man there, Max Verstappen, who says we won't get an even closer top 10 today?
Well, if you don't think it'll rain again, you may as well be out the back of the garage, reading the Financial Times, checking out the latest private jet brochures as a Formula One driver, because the track will just keep drying. It will get faster and faster and faster, but they can't take that risk, of course. But the other risk is that in these iffy conditions...
track is okay for slick. Copy.
In these iffy conditions, it is very easy to run a little bit wide, catch a slightly wetter patch of racetrack, and throw the car heavily into the barriers.
Pressure's on then as the drivers file out. We're waiting for Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc and Perez to get onto the track, and eventually they will. And as Oscar Piastri comes out, barreling down into turn one is Nico Hülkenberg on a flying lap. So he's going to be one of the first to try and set the flying lap. And look, it looks pretty dry, doesn't it, on the run down towards turn one. The rain started just at the end of the F2 race, and it literally stopped just a couple of moments ago, but it is still very, very warm here, so it will dry very quickly as Hülkenberg takes turn four.
Yeah, it's sort of spoiled our fun a little bit, but by not raining for another 5-10 minutes. But it's now it's all about just finding out how much grip there is, and it'll be ever increasing for the certainly the first 5-10 minutes of this session until it dries out completely. But they've got so much downforce, so much grip from these tyres, and you can already see a racing line starting to burn out into the racetrack surface.
So Hülkenberg going well, one of the stars of qualifying and racing in the last couple of races. He's got back-to-back sixth-place finishes after 2 successive Q3 appearances. He's been in Q3 6 of the 12 races that we've had so far, and both he and his teammate Kevin Magnussen looked impressive in the morning practice session, as did Albon for Williams, as did Ricciardo and Tsunoda for RB. There were a few outliers in the top 10, mainly because the Ferraris were struggling. Leclerc and Sainz and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, who looked to me like a driver on Friday running with less fuel in his car to give him some confidence, and when it went back to parity, it was the usual distance behind his teammate.
That could be possible. We'll find out over the next hour.
We think there could be one lap before the rain, so suggest Strat 2. Strat 2 could be some rain after you've done 1 lap.
Wow. So it's still up and out there then, and that is why we have all 20 cars on track. They think that, but it's such a thin layer of cloud. It must be really difficult to read the weather forecast at the moment.
So with 20 drivers on track, good time to ride on board with your favourite drivers, should you so wish. We've got all the onboards and the team radio too. You need your Sky Sports app, your Sky Sports login, and use your ID to log in for that. But if you are watching via Sky Stream, Sky Q, Sky Glass, or now you can use the interactive button on your remote control. And who's fastest in the first sector so far? Fernando Alonso with a 28.1. If you can get your lap in before the rain comes, then being a bit later on the track might be advantageous here. 28.0 for Sainz, one of the later cars to go out. Oscar Piastri has gone quickest in the middle sector.
Yeah, that's a really quick time from Sainz in the first sector, but they are finding grip. The cars are moving around a little bit, but Sargent already into the 117. If you can find a good lap with lovely crispy cool air like this, bit of moisture around, we could see some quite sensational lap times actually. And a mid-17 then for Oscar Piastri, goes fastest at the moment, and that stays by 1/4 of a second faster than his teammate Lando Norris.
Sainz has got purple. He should be going fastest of all in a moment. We saw that message. The rain is increasing. So these laps, if that is the case, really could count. Hamilton's gone fastest in the first sector, Sainz by 2.5 tenths. Goes quickest overall from Piastri and from Norris. Zhou Guanyu was the quickest driver in qualifying 1 last year with a 1:18.1. We're already 9 tenths ahead of that as we pick up Lewis Hamilton going towards turn 11. Stay within track limits, hurtle down to your next braking zone. There are 6 of them on this track. Hamilton's got plenty of time in hand. In that bottom 5 with him, his teammate George Russell, who's setting personal best, but not as good as Hamilton. Russell goes 13th fastest. Joe, Gasly, Bottas and Hulkenberg along with Hamilton in that bottom 5. 9-time pole sitter here in Budapest. Hamilton crosses the line, goes quickest, puts Ricciardo down into that bottom 5, and if the rain is coming and the track's getting slower, that is bad news for Daniel Ricciardo, with Charles Leclerc and George Russell just the right side, and only just the right side of that elimination zone.
We're still seeing personal best from the like of Valtteri Bottas down in 18th place, though. There is grip out there, somebody's off.
Sargent down at turn 1 has gone on and is going to have to rejoin the track. He's currently 5th fastest, was attempting a latest flying lap, Logan Sargent. He's got going again, he's back on the track as Bottas crosses the line, 12th fastest, puts Leclerc down in the bottom 5.
It is all about now, will it rain any more than 11.5 minutes to go? Track looks okay at the moment. I don't know what Ted's feeling down there in the pit lane. There's no visible sign of rain, but it's a covered grandstand. We can see outside our commentary box window is indeed the rain coming down.
Yes, it is, Martin, but only a little plinks and plonks, as I like to say. Williams preparing a new front wing if Logan Sargent needs it. I'll tell you 2 people who haven't played this right, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, particularly Gasly, not quick enough on his first run. Both have had to pit for a brand new set of soft tyres. Still slicks at the moment.
Albon goes 8th fastest ahead of Fernando Alonso, who's currently down in 9th. Lewis Hamilton, Sainz, Piastri, Norris and Sargent, then the top 5, and there's Sargent's teammate Alex Albon.
And now Leclerc under pressure in the Ferrari, in the drop zone, in the 16th place. Remember, this is not, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That explains why he went so deep into the corner, hits the barrier. No wonder they're preparing a new front wing. He's just locked up the front axle under heavy brake. It's a bit downhill in there into that braking zone, a little bit damp, front tyres not warm enough, hits the brake pedal, instantly locks them up, and a little kiss on the barrier.
Are you okay?
There.
Yeah, I'm not sure the car is.
I mean, the good news for Sargent is he's far enough away from the bottom 5 for the time being, but let's see who's improving below that. This so far is the best lap for Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen's just gone quickest overall through the middle sector. Leclerc comes around the final corner, 3rd on the grid here a couple of years ago, and goes 9th fastest, only 9th fastest for Ferrari.
Yeah, everybody that's finished a lap recently, although Verstappen is on a very quick middle sector, there is grip out there. There is grip, and Verstappen pops it up into 3rd place. So they've just got to keep at it.
Yeah.
They've got to keep at it.
And realise that you will find pockets of grip maybe where you're not expecting it. Ricciardo pushes Lance Stroll down into the bottom 5 as the rain starts to get slightly heavier here. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda goes 11th fastest. Perez crosses the line, stays 8th quickest overall, 8 tenths off the pace being set by Lewis Hamilton. Gasly through the first 2 sectors is just the right side of a lap time that he needs to pull himself out of that bottom 5, but currently he is slowest of all 20 drivers here at a track where he started from the pit lane a couple of years ago.
And you've got to then throw caution to the wind out there now. Believe it will stick and send the car. There's no option.
Gasly to the line then. Moves himself 11th fastest, pushes George Russell down towards that bottom 5, which is currently occupied by Ricciardo, Stroll, Magnussen, Joe and Hulkenberg. The 2 Hasses and the Aston Martin of Stroll, both currently in the pits. George Russell with the fastest first sector for him on his latest lap. Who else is currently in the pits? Sargent to get a new front wing maybe. His teammate Alex Albon and Valtteri Bottas, the rest carrying on round.
And we know both Aston Martin drivers saved an extra set of soft tyres going into this qualifying session, so they can afford to throw them on and burn another set up in Q1.
Which they thought they might need in Q2 to try and help them get into the top 10, but you've got to be in Q2 first, Martin. It's like the lottery,
Yeah,
you've got to be in it to win it.
So Daniel Ricciardo in the drop zone now, George Russell nervously there.
He's had a bad middle sector,
Yeah,
George Russell.
Probably somewhere.
This might explain why. Through the chicane he goes. and approaching, why, didn't even get to the part of the track where his teammate had a spin in practice, and that just got wobbly and he had to back out.
Yeah, again, that's what I was talking about. You've got to throw caution to the wind and believe it will stick. Otherwise, you're kind of, there's no point in being out there. And Russell comes in the pits then. Presumably, he's going to have to throw another set of soft compound tyres on that. They're doing a racing start. Now they're going to put their wheels underneath it and put it back into the garage. Put some fuel in. You're only allowed to refuel in the garage at 1.8 litres per second. And that's what he's got to do. Time. That's a bit nervy, isn't it, for Russell? That's very nervy if the rain starts coming down.
Yep, pole setter 2 years ago here, George Russell. Mercedes taking pole in recent 2 years, the last 2 poles here. Not having it all their own way with one car and currently fastest with the other. I'm told Daniel Ricciardo has got some brake issues. That's what's keeping him currently in the pits. Lando Norris doesn't improve on that latest lap, goes 6th fastest. And they wouldn't all have been fueled to go for the full 18 minutes. No. So you'd imagine Lando will be coming in for refueling in a moment as Leclerc goes 8th quickest for Ferrari. Sainz 2nd fastest, Leclerc 8th fastest.
Leclerc just edging up 1 place. Yellow flag is
no, I don't think we can improve like this.
What's your concern?
It's
the temperatures
Perez.
or the...
The rain! The rain!
Oh, it's Perez!
Okay,
He's hit
calm
the
down,
wall!
Max. Then if you're concerned about the rain, we can box. You can come back to the garage, it's not a problem. You were talking to me about tyre temps.
That conversation is now irrelevant because Sergio Perez, who has been having a wretched run of form when it comes to qualifying, out in Q1 at 3 of the last 5 Grand Prix, has put his Red Bull into the barriers here in Hungary. He's okay, which is great, but it is another moment for Sergio Perez, which he can ill afford in the current climate. Speculation over his future. He's not delivering the goods for Red Bull, and this is what sent him into the barriers.
I think it's turn 8 where we saw George Russell having the problem. It is indeed on turn in. It's a bit wet, and bang. That's what I was talking about. Unfortunately, you've got to go for it, but if it's slightly wetter in one corner, that. And as soon as you start sliding off that drier line, you're in double trouble. And that has switched on the medical light. He's had enough G-force impact into the barriers to deploy the medical car. And that is the last thing Sergio Perez needed today or this year.
No. If he was down in the bottom 5, Martin, I can understand why he would be pushing and maybe pushing a bit too hard at that part of the track where we saw George Russell having a moment where it might just be a little bit more damp. But he's not. He's currently 9th fastest.
Yeah, but you know what? Was he taking crazy speed into the corner? Was he offline? Did he make a mistake? No. He turned in the right place. There just wasn't any grip when he got there. He'd come off the curb in turn 7, so maybe he'd got a little bit more damp on his right rear tyre. He'd been quite high up on that T7 curb. And he's turned in, and it's just the way it's running for him at the moment. You know, Russell caught it. Perez didn't. Just like in Silverstone, Verstappen caught the problem at Copse Corner.
Yeah.
Had a trip through the gravel. Perez didn't, and spun in the runoff area and hit the barrier. So that's how it's running for him at the moment, and it's critical times for him and Red Bull. What do they do about this? How long can they just keep going? He'll get his mojo back shortly, and I feel very sorry for him on this one because this is what I mean on the curb there. Look, he's quite high up, but nothing special. Turns in from the curb. That could have been a little bit wetter. Maybe he could have given a bit more caution on that turn-in curb. But he wasn't doing anything ridiculous.
No, he wasn't. But would his team, would Hugh Bird on the radio, his race engineer, have said to him, look, we've seen George Russell have a moment in that particular part of the track. Just be a little bit careful. It might be damp up there.
Possibly, but, you know, I'm not sure you need feedback on all the adventures of all the other drivers, to be honest.
We do get a lot of correspondence, Martin, saying, when are you guys going to stop speculating about Sergio Perez's future? And I think the simple answer at the moment is when he stops having moments like this, because there have been a lot of them. And yes, this is not one of Sergio's most favoured tracks. 13 visits, never qualified in the top 3. But that sort of moment is not what Red Bull are looking for, and that's why questions are being asked as to whether he'll continue in that seat for the rest of the season. And the fact they put Liam Lawson in the car for a filming day after Silverstone was quite significant after that British Grand Prix.
Absolutely. Ironically, he's through to Q2 because nobody's going to go any faster now. So that means the bottom 5 are the bottom 5. It's now raining quite hard. DRS disabled. Low grip conditions. It is properly raining out there, as we saw on the front of the Alpine.
So whilst that might be better news for Sergio Perez, that is bad news for Daniel Ricciardo, who, Ted Kravitz, had those brake issues that kept him in the garage while the track was dry. Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, I'm down here. Hello. Yes, they did indeed, and he was actually going for another run on a newer set of tyres, was Daniel Ricciardo, but 16th at the moment. It's not impossible. The rain at the moment, I would suggest, what have we got, Crofty? 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes?
6 3/4.
I would say it's not impossible to find a bit more grip out there, but like Verstappen was saying on the radio, you know, it's not getting any better. Oscar Piastri was saying the same thing. Look, it's not getting any better, but it's hard to say exactly how much worse it's getting. But with Ricciardo having to find, what, only, well, 3/10, 4/10 of a second to be absolutely safe, that's a hard ask, really, when the collection of drivers is so tight. They're all on 1:18.4s, aren't they? Russell 18.4, Bottas 18.4, Ricciardo 18.4.
Yeah, the gap to Bottas is 2 100s.
Yeah, but looking at this rain out the window here, Ted, and streaming off the top of the grandstands, in the next 6.5 minutes, there's no chance.
Yeah, well, from where
going faster.
Yeah, from where I am, it's actually, funnily enough, from the little puddle outside the Williams garage, it's actually looks like it's starting to ease up. But Crofty, just to answer your question about, you know, people asking why do you keep speculating on the future of Sergio Perez? Because we're not. It's Red Bull who are speculating on the future of Sergio Perez, and we're reporting it. That's all we're doing. When you've got Helmut Marko, the special driver advisor at Red Bull, saying that in terms of drivers, quote, everything is open, then we're just reporting that they're doing it. But yeah, Christian Horner's going to have him round to his kitchen for another cup of tea, isn't he, after this?
Well, listening to Christian Horner yesterday, he came out, I don't know about Red Bull team boss, he sounded like Sergio Perez's manager to me, and giving a very stout reasoning as to why Perez should be their driver. But when you see the car being winched away after yet another crash, it's more defensive duties verbally for Christian Horner, I think, after this session. If the rain is easing up, that means Anthony Davidson won't have a brolly in his hand, and he'll be down at the sky pad now.
Yeah, no brolly in my hand, Crosby, but it is raining. So if any drops hit the sky pad, it might do some weird things. So we'll get into it quickly. So first of all, we had George Russell on his fastest lap through turn 12. I noticed this snap of oversteer that he had on the exit, a sure sign that things were pretty slippery at that corner, and many others suffered a similar thing as well. Then later, of course, into turn 8, once he was out of the chicane, I think what's happening is that on this white line, it's holding a bit of water. So as the drivers attempted to use this part of the track that they would do in dry conditions, it's holding onto the water, and as they go to turn in, the rear tyre's not liking it, and they're struggling to keep the rear of the car in check. And exactly that's what happened with Perez as well. But you'll see on this particular lap, he uses even more curb than what Russell did as he ventures onto that line. Here we go, right onto the curb there. And the red and white curb's particularly going to be hanging onto, in that serrated part, hanging onto a bit more water. So as soon as he turns in there, on a wetter track as well to boot, the car obviously spins around, and a hefty old hit into the barrier there. So I'm glad to see that he's okay. That's the main thing whenever you see a situation like that. But yeah, with 6.5 minutes remaining of the session, obviously he won't be back out there, but Russell is really on the cusp. But another thing to consider as well, isn't there a rule that whoever causes a red flag loses their lap times? I seem to remember someone did that recently, but my memory's not as good as yours, Crofty.
In which case then, Ant, I will check the sporting regulations while Martin takes us through the weather radar.
Yeah, I think they've talked about that, haven't they? But I'm not aware that actually got crystallised, unless it was in a technical directive that we don't have access to. But the radar is definitely showing the cloud moving away in the nearish future. it's really, we're looking at the back of the commentary box, Crofty, aren't we, to try and get a feel for, it's just spitting, isn't it? I mean, DRS is disabled, low grip conditions officially, which means you can run intermediates if you want to, or indeed full wets, but you wouldn't be doing that. They won't get the rear wing open down the pit straight. So I think the concept of getting into the 1:17s on this track in the next 6 minutes 45, you've got to get out as well. So let's call that 5 minutes time you get out to the start line. We'll see, but no umbrellas up there. Look, no ponchos hardly. The track has, you know, maybe Ted's right. Maybe there is a window right at the end if it stops raining completely.
Well, we've got a minute and a half to go before Q1 will resume. The sporting regulations, and I've got the latest in front of me here, say that any driver whose car stops on the track during the qualifying session or sprint qualifying will not be permitted to take any further part in that session. And that's it. And I know it was talked about that if you cause a red flag or double wave yellows, you lose your time. But the time of a 1:17.8 was not the last lap that Sergio had done in that session. From memory recall.
That didn't get rubber stamped, the idea you lose your time. So he will, depending on, he will start 15, 20, minus any penalties for other drivers. So Perez, I think when they get going on Q2, he won't set a time and he'll start 15th.
What are they doing down at Williams? Covering up a bit more on the brakes, or is that front suspension? Is that Logan Sargent's car? It is. So I wonder if the front suspension took a knot when he went into the barrier. Yeah,
it's a reasonable hit, wasn't it? In terms of suspension that's hanging quite a long way out in the front of a 2-meter wide car. So it certainly would need checking for geometry and probably needs a little bit of TLC. Some WD-40 and tank tape and a small hammer.
If the small hammer doesn't work, find a bigger hammer, because that solves all the problems technically. When we get going, and the green light is now on, not surprised to see both Saubers coming out, Martin. Would you imagine everyone from Esteban Ocon downwards, or would Ocon, Albon, Gasly, Tsunoda think that they're just the right side? George Russell certainly isn't. In the 1:18.4s, he has to come out.
So I'm looking out here. The rain's been pouring off the roof of the grandstand where it's been collected up. The pit lane looks saturated. And as soon as they turn up on the racetrack, it looks bone dry, doesn't it?
It's still 30 degrees, track temperature. That does look bone dry. But I think it's at the top part of the track where it might just be a tad wet. And what the drivers will have to do is keep off the curbs from here on in.
Yeah. Look at the let's look at the visor there. We're seeing rain on Valtteri's visor. Not really, are we? No. Just, yeah, you can see a little bit of water streaming off, can't you? Off the visor. So there's a bit of moisture in the air still. There'll be enough to make it certainly tricky for the first few minutes. And there's damp patches here and there. It'd be so easy to smash the car to bits right now.
This seems to me, fuel it for maybe maybe 5 laps, and then just build up gradually. Build the temperature up gradually, get your confidence up gradually, and then go for it with the final lap. And if you're Valtteri Bottas, all you need to do is find 15 thousandths of a second to get level with George Russell. And if you're George Russell, find a couple of tenths to put yourself as clear as you possibly can.
You can probably get 3 laps into the end now, in the 5 to go, possibly 4 if you're lucky. But they're quite a little bit tense down into the braking zone of turn 1, but they've got to go out and give it a try.
And we'll see from these early sector times just what the state of the track is like currently. 28.0 is the fastest first sector that we've had from Lewis Hamilton. Joe gets to the end of the first sector, nowhere near the 28, is he? He's 2.5 seconds above that, or 2.7 seconds actually, with a 30.7 for the first sector. Now he could be just building up and building up here, but that is nowhere near the pace that he's going to need to get out of the bottom 5.
And George Russell's had to use a second set of soft tyres, so that's compromised his qualifying in that respect. But only 5 cars on track, which is another problem in terms of drying the track out, isn't it? 20 cars obviously will dry the track much more quickly. 4 minutes to go And some of these areas do look sketchy indeed, as George Russell says. It's still very damp. So, and they still don't get the rear wing open down the pit straight either, because DRS remains disabled. The theory there is, if it's wet and slippery, why would you let the cars go even faster down the straight?
So that's the other problem, isn't it? You lose that extra speed down the straights, or straights, because there are two.
Yeah.
And
and visibility as well. If there's poor visibility, why let the cars go even faster?
Danny Ricciardo's in the bottom 5. He's not out on track. Lauren Mekis, his team principal, is on the pit wall for us. Lauren, sorry to ask this, but what's the issue with Daniel Ricciardo?
Oh, you know, the first one was difficult for everyone. You know, everyone was in tough conditions there with rain going up and down. So you get big variation in this sort of situations. Unfortunately, we are just outside the Q1 cut with Daniel. We are going to give it another go, but it's all down to see if the track dries up enough now to see if we have a chance to go through. It looks difficult, but we will try.
Yeah, especially with the DRS disabled. Is Yuki coming out as well?
Yeah, he is as well, yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Lauren, thank you. We'll let you get back to to the day job, as it were. But, yeah.
10 cars on track now, having a go. Russell, not too far away from decent sector times. Track sort of beginning to come. Maybe there'll be one lap right at the end of it.
Here's interesting. Zhou Guanyu set his personal best middle sector. No DRS in that. George Russell now sets his personal best middle sector as well. Yuki Tsunoda is out in terms of on the track. So's Daniel Ricciardo, so's Lance Stroll. Magnussen and Hulkenberg still in the pits. Hulkenberg's now just come out onto the racetrack. Lewis Hamilton's also out there. He's got the fastest lap so far, 1:17.0, as George Russell goes 10th fastest, puts a bit of distance between himself and that bottom 5.
And that was the fastest of anybody in the final sector, so there is indeed grip out there. Ted was right. There is grip out there. And that's going to shock a few people. We now have 15 cars on the track, and they'll have one flying lap, most of them.
Yeah, you can kind of understand why Lewis Hamilton, even with the quickest time, is out on the track. Everyone is out now on the track, apart from Pierre Gasly and Sergio Perez, obviously, because Perez hasn't got a car to go on. And Esteban Ocon is also still in the pits. So the two Alpines not coming out then. And they're currently standing 11th and 13th, which might put them in the danger zone here if the track is drying out and continues to improve.
Yeah, 17 of them on the track, as you say. So this is it. One flying lap then for Lance Stroll to try to square this up, get himself through to the second phase of qualifying.
I wonder if Alpine have made a bit of a mistake here. We'll find out in a moment. Take us through this lap, Martin.
Downhill braking, that will definitely be sketchy in there still. And get the nose in. Pick the throttle up immediately. It tightens a bit through the exit. Bring it to the right-hand side. Another downhill braking zone into turn 2. And then quite a late apex there. You don't want to be too wide on the exit. That's wider than you want to be. Otherwise, you pinch turn 3. It tightens the car up. Over the blind crest into 4. 150 miles an hour. Oh, and that curb on the exit there. This is a parabolic corner, 180 degrees you turn through. Short straight, heavy braking, a piff-paff chicane. Inside curve, inside curve. It's okay on the outside of the moment. Turn 8, slippery on the way in, we know, but the Aston Martin stuck to the ground nicely. Should be absolutely flat out now through turns 10 and 11. Stroll's done a personal best. Verstappen's going even faster in the middle sector. Another downhill braking zone into 12. A pretty standard 90-degree right-hander. Approach now 13 from the right-hand side. Be patient, patient, patient. Go for it. Feel the grip. Swing to the left-hand side. And the never-ending final turn. You want to go for it, but you've got to be patient again. And a short run to the line.
Lots of green sectors popping up. Lance Stroll goes 4th. Pushes Tsunoda into the risk zone. The bottom 5, Bottas, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Zhou and Hulkenberg. Ricciardo goes quickest overall by nearly 4/100ths to Lewis Hamilton. Gets a big cheer from the crowd as he does it. Gasly is now the next driver at risk, and I think Alpine have made a big mistake by not being on the track here. As Albon goes 5th fastest, Gasly is into the relegation zone as Hulkenberg goes 6th. George Russell is now very much in danger. Ocon has been pushed into that bottom 5. Joe Guan Yu goes 16th fastest. That saves George Russell. Here comes Valtteri Bottas. George Russell is out of qualifying. Pole here 2 years ago, and Russell is down in P16. Now this could be an absolute disaster for Perez as well, because here comes Magnussen and he pushes Perez out. It's another Q1 exit for him. A Red Bull and a Mercedes bite the dust in a dramatic first part of qualifying. But Russell, was he too early with his lap time once the session got resumed? Pole sitter 2 years ago, he's out in Q1.
Wow, didn't see that one coming. What happened to George's lap? He didn't find time. Others found bucket loads of grip out there in the happy hour. There were 1:17s out on the racetrack. How bizarre. And George Russell then joined Sergio Perez. Perez's car smashed up, of course, anyway. And Lando Norris, as Russell apologizes to the team, Norris down in 13th. That was getting 11th for Piastri. That was getting nervy for McLaren, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, everyone. That one is on me. The words of George Russell at the end of qualifying that has seen Sergio Perez make it 4 of the last 6 Grand Prix where he's gone out in Q1. Russell joins him. Joe Guan Yu also out in Q1, and the 2 Alpines who weren't there at the end when the times were improving, both heading out. Ocon 19th, Gasly 20th, and Ricciardo ended up fastest. For the second year running, George Russell is out.
I mean, why are we not finding enough fuel in the car to complete the session, guys? Track's just getting better and better.
George Russell taking responsibility there, and maybe there wasn't enough fuel in the car to do as many laps as he would have wanted early on, and maybe he was out there a little bit too early to try and set the lap time, but leaving it late and leaving it very nice was Daniel Ricciardo. We'll go to his team boss in a moment.
I mean, why are we not finding enough fuel in the car to complete the session, guys? Track's just getting better and better.
Yeah, there maybe wasn't enough fuel in the car then.
Yeah, they were telling him. They were telling him also on that radio to abandon the lap, and he's like, "Why won't we fuel to the end?" We sort of go back in to be refueled, didn't we, as it happens? But that has cost Mercedes-Benz and George Russell a really powerful grid opportunity, and they're down in 17th. And this place is so hard to overtake in the race unless there's a massive tyre degradation problem, and that means that he'll be desperately hoping for some kind of safety car issue to help him out tomorrow, will George Russell. But I can see what, you know, from Alpine's point of view, this pit lane was saturated. The pit apron was saturated. It was raining, but somehow on the racetrack looked like it was, you know, absolutely not affected by the rain. And we saw some of the fastest, well, we did see the fastest time, didn't we? Extraordinary.
Well, we did. Daniel Ricciardo, quickest time. Laurent, better late than never, and that was the best of lates from Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, it was tricky, but you know what, he did a very, very good job. It's always tricky in these sort of conditions, and you know, everybody stayed very calm. Daniel and Yuki did a good job. What we had on the board was not enough, and they managed to put a good lap in, both of them. So you know, it's good job from them and from the team. It was a good stress test for everyone's nerve.
So which tyres are standing by from here on in? Any more rain coming?
No, we don't see any more rain coming. There may be drops at times, so we believe it's going to be down to one single set of soft for us. We're only one new soft left, so we'll play it at the end of the sessions with our drivers.
Good luck for the next 15 minutes. Green lights on. Thanks ever so much, Laurent. This might be a more straightforward session then.
Well, it looks absolutely bone dry now, doesn't it? And the Ferrari then of Carlos Sainz on his way up to turn 4. Little right curve just at the top there, and it's a great corner, that one. Really tests the drivers out. So 5 it is now, coasting around the outlap to try to save the energy of the tyres, and Ted's got an update.
So if it was half a driver mistake and George Russell saying that was on me, maybe he's trying to save the team, but clearly a Mercedes team mistake in not putting enough fuel in the car for 3 laps when it was clear as day that the last lap was going to be the quickest. Down at Alpine, the post-mortem has started. Crofty and Martin, the engineers on the pit wall, it must have been such a horrible sinking feeling just knowing that it was too late to send the cars out and knowing that they were just going to get knocked out one by one. Kyron Pilbeam, the chief engineer, very experienced, respected engineer, was just sitting there impassively watching both his drivers tumble to the back of the timing screens. And I can only imagine what the team boss Bruno Famin was doing at the back of the garage, trying to find his red card for something or someone, Crofty, no doubt.
Yeah, so used tyres for Carlos Sainz on the Ferrari, as they now try to eke out the tyres they've got. So they get 2 new sets. Those that get through, they get an extra set, of course. If you, the prize for getting through to Q3 is an extra set of soft tyres that they somewhat bargain on, and they hope to keep another set as well if they can. To use as well in that all-important Q3 shootout. But once again now we're seeing, because of the relatively low air and track temperatures and with the rain, with the water, the damp patches they're going away pretty quickly, we're starting to see really peak conditions, beautiful conditions to generate some spectacular lap times.
So, last year, Carlos Sainz in Q2 found himself 0.375 off the fastest time. He went out in Q2. Just shows you, on a 2.7 mile track, how close it can be here. The margins between success and early exits are very, very small. So, let's see where Carlos Sainz can put himself. At the end of this lap, he's still in the 117s, but only just. He improves by a couple of tenths from his first lap, or his fastest lap in Q1, and it's a 117.0. That's what the rest are all aiming for. Ferrari have not looked especially fast throughout this weekend. Charles Leclerc, of course, having that crash in FP2, which didn't help him much by losing a huge amount of lap time. But Sainz with that lap on the board, let's see who can chase it down.
Sainz and Hamilton on used tyres. We're about to get a benchmark. There is Lewis Hamilton. About to get a benchmark. Max Verstappen is on brand new tyres in the Red Bull. Hülkenberg, Stroll used, Bottas, Piastri all used, then Alonso on a new set down there with Aston Martin having saved a few extra And one extra, indeed.
Quite. And we are on board with Max Verstappen, taking it nice and easy, nice and calmly, watching the display on his steering wheel to show where his tyres are at in terms of temperature and whether they're too cold or whether they're too hot or whether he's got them in the sweet spot that you need to get them at their most grippy. And while he does that, Lewis Hamilton starts his latest flying lap.
And it's about the brake temperatures, it's about the wheel rim temperature, the carcass of the tyre and the surface of the tyre. They're heating engineers, basically.
And highly paid heating engineers as well. But you're right. You're watching the track, you're watching your dashboard, you're watching your mirrors. There's a lot to try and compute here. 27.9 from Sainz was the first sector time that Hamilton needs to aim for on this lap. And is he inside that? He is, by about a tenth and a bit. Yuki Tsunoda keeps out of the way. Verstappen has the stopwatch on him. He's just getting out of turn 3, as you can see. And Hamilton continues on his way on the twisty top part of this circuit. Never stop turning that steering wheel. Verstappen has taken 3/10 out of the first sector alone on the best time we'd had so far.
Yep, Verstappen on new to remind, and Lewis Hamilton on used tyres. But this is a pretty handy lap from Hamilton. He's putting in here, and he's looked pretty feisty, hasn't he? He looked really good in the beginning of Q1 as well.
Found the final corner. Hamilton then, with Verstappen on enjoying the luxury of the extra grip on those new tyres. Hamilton goes into the mid-116s, half a second clear of his fastest time during the first part of qualifying. Those Dutch fans are sat waiting patiently. I dare say when Verstappen crosses the line they might just stand. Here he comes around the final corner now. Few of them did. It's only the first part of Q2, but there's a 1:15.7 on the board, and that, Martin, is what the likes of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, who were the two quickest guys in FP3, that's what they need to be aiming for come Q3.
Absolutely, that's what they've got to do when they're on fresh tyres. And it's really important. I'll have a look at the tyres now, but that's 9/10 faster than last year's pole. But as I said, this is happy hour now. With these track temperatures and air ambient temperatures, there'll be a lot of grip out on a circuit that's pretty much all corners.
New tyres, I think, for Lance Stroll as he goes second fastest. Make that third as Piastri crosses the line at just 15 thousandths of a second shy of Max Verstappen. Let's go to the final corner. Fernando Alonso, former pole sitter here at the Hungaroring, where he took his maiden win back in 2003. He goes third fastest overall. Alonso, a glittering career pole here in 09 and in 2003 with that win as well.
Piastri was on used tyres.
Wow.
To do that time.
In which case, that is a very impressive time on the board indeed.
Yes, it is.
Here's his teammate Lando Norris. As Tsunoda goes seventh fastest. Norris, a couple of poles to his name in his career, and he took pole in Barcelona just a handful of races ago, around the penultimate turn. The McLaren's looked the quickest car in the dry. It really has. An FP2 and an FP3, Lando Norris was the driver that led the way. And he's only fourth fastest, though, half a second down. I'm assuming that was used tyres as well?
Absolutely was, but I think it underlines what a cracking lap that was from Oscar Piastri.
Doesn't it just? His second visit to the Hungaroring in Formula One. Here's Charles Leclerc next. Fifth fastest for Charles Leclerc. We still wait for Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg to get some times on the board. Albon and Sargent have both been out for Williams. Bottas back in the garage for Sauber.
Brand spanking new tyres for Leclerc. I mean, when I say new, they're 10 miles, 15 kilometres younger than the other ones, but it matters when you're putting this much load through them.
Well, Sainz, who was the first driver out, Martin, to set the time in this Q2 session, now finds himself 10th. So this is an important lap for him. Staying on those tyres will have been fueled then for a couple of runs at the start of this session, and we'll be hoping to be somewhere around Piastri, maybe ahead of Alonso by the time he crosses the line. Takes a nice, neat and tidy inside line around that final turn, and he does go right in between Piastri and Alonso there. Much better for him. So the driver's at risk there. Well, driver at risk is Yuki Tsunoda, because he's 10th. And Bottas, Sargent, Albon, Hülkenberg and Ricciardo currently in the bottom 5. We lost Gasly, Ocon, Joe, Perez and George Russell from Q1. Let's hear from George now with Rachel Brooks.
George, you said on the radio, I'm sorry everyone, that one was on me. Just tell us why and what happened.
Well, there's two factors. The first one was I didn't do a good enough job at the beginning, and that was why I was down in P15. And then the next one was we put the new tyres on at the end and we didn't have enough fuel to complete the session. And I was on track when it was wettest and when it was driest I had no fuel. So it was a disaster from both aspects. We should have got through comfortably on that last lap, but we had no fuel. So as I said, that was on me for being in the position in the first place.
That's an unusual mistake to make, isn't it? To not well, for you and for not having enough fuel.
Yeah, I mean, it was not our usual standard for sure. But yeah, we need to go through it. I need to understand what happened my side at the beginning, but I mean, having enough fuel for the whole session is a fundamental. So we, as a team, we made a big error.
Thank you, thanks, George.
Started 18th last year, finished 6th, needs something similar 12 months on, Martin.
Yeah, the key there is fundamentally, he's absolutely right. You know, on a track that's clearly going to keep drying and it's pivotal, if there is a lap to be had, and there clearly was, then you've got to be there right at the end. So it does seem either it's an error of not putting enough fuel in, the right amount of fuel in, or certainly an error of judgment by not fueling him till well past the finish line so he could get back to the pits again and go again.
So a little lull then before we go out for the final runs. Verstappen with a 1:15.7 on new tyres. Piastri had done one lap, you say, on those tyres? One run.
Well, they were showing as used anyway. Piastri's definitely showing as a used set of tyres.
I think he'd only done just the one lap. He had been out of them. Hamilton, 1:16.5 might look a little bit off the pace compared to Oscar, because he was on old tyres as well. He'd done 11 laps on those, just to try and put the different times into perspective for you. Ted, I'm assuming you've got rid of the wet weather gear now. Maybe not. Maybe he's still got his brolly. Ted? Oh, we'll go back to Ted in a bit now. He was standing by, I'm told, ready, poised, waiting to give us the latest, and his batteries went. I mean, not his personally, but the ones on his radio mic. So we'll go down to Ted in a moment. 1:16.3, the projected knockout time, which means that everyone, I think, from Carlos Sainz down, is going to have to go out here. And this is why the likes of Aston Martin save 2 sets of soft tyres.
Yeah, and of course, by getting the extra lap in right at the end of Q1, at least it's kept them in play, and they can make the most of those. So a brand new set of tyres then on the Ferrari. They're used on the Haas there. You can see they're sort of dull on the top of Nico Hülkenberg's car, and unless somebody will let him in, he's not allowed to shove his front wing across that line, and they don't want to let him in. He's got to get his tyre over that white line to claim a spot, and nobody will let him in. It's like, yeah, coming out of any junction in London, basically, isn't it? Or Paris, or anywhere else for that matter.
This is tight.
A miss is as good as a mile.
Now, that's either a little bit fortuitous or the most precise piece of driving Charles Leclerc is going to put in all weekend long.
Yeah, I mean, normally you've barely got enough steering lock to clear the pit wall, have we? So, narrow garages, which I think all come down, don't they, on Monday? The whole lot comes down.
Well, certainly the grandstand that we're in is coming down, big redevelopment, but the garages too.
We're getting done here. This is taking too long.
And they're all building gaps, aren't they, to the car in front, so that they don't get disturbed or have to slow down too much on the track.
And this is what I would say, quite often on the weekend, you know, the pit layout is almost always based on the previous year's Constructors' Championship. And if you're at the end of the pit lane, you're always going to struggle to get in the queue. So I guess you just got to go out and sit there and wait, but that's not optimum either, as you're losing a lot of tyre temperature.
When it's looking in the championship, it'll be a bit better for Haas next year, but that won't really matter to Nico Hülkenberg because he won't be there. He's going to be at Sauber, of course. Hamilton, a couple of tenths down on the best first sector we've had so far.
Wrestling the car through turn 5, had to make 3 or 4 corrections there. Was a little bit wrong-footed by somebody just trying to keep out of his way, but Yeah, Lewis really struggling. This is where he spun off this morning when also the back end of the car wouldn't quite stick. So it's a personal best for Lewis, but it certainly wasn't threatening the fastest first sector. And what's he got? He's not even got a personal best in the middle, and we did see him, as I say, fighting the car. So Lewis really working hard here to improve on that current 8th position with many more runners behind him.
Yeah, and ahead of him, Lance Stroll, the guy in 7th place, currently a couple of tenths up, Stroll into the top 10 of the championship for the first time since China. Hamilton goes 6th fastest then. Is that going to be enough? A 1:16.3, that is right on the cusp. Stroll puts in a 1:16.0. According to the predictions, should be enough for a top 10 here for Lance Stroll. Alex Albon will be next to cross the line. Albon, who was into the points at Silverstone, of course, DRS Open, goes 9th. That's where he started at Silverstone, but a 1:16.4, that's going to leave him sweating, potentially, as we watch Charles Leclerc, currently 8th fastest, and going along very nicely on this latest lap. 26.7 was a good middle sector.
It was just 2 corners to go then. Flick left, his left, to go through this long final corner. Ricciardo pops it up into 6th place. While that's happening, putting more pressure on Lewis Hamilton. Over the line goes Leclerc, P4 for now.
Yeah, so Hamilton down into 9th place. Norris has just aced the middle sector. Alonso in that middle part of the track did not have a particularly good time of it. He's currently 6th fastest, would like to go a little bit quicker, crosses the line, stays 6th fastest. Sonoda, personal best for him for the first and middle sectors. Norris goes quickest by over 0.2 of a second. Said that McLaren was a quick thing in the dry, and Norris has certainly proved that. That was the sort of gap between him and Verstappen in the first 2 practice sessions. Back to the track action, Yuki Tsunoda. Could he push Lewis Hamilton down to 10th and put Alex Albon out of qualifying? He does just that, goes 8th fastest.
He does. Verstappen is on a flying lap as well, did a really good first sector where he's been struggling. So Verstappen about to demonstrate the full potential of the Red Bull, and it'll need to be good because McLaren are fast.
And Magnussen, Bottas, Hülkenberg, all setting personal bests in both sectors on this, their final laps in Q2. Bottas crosses the line, just misses out by 7/100ths of a second, and Hülkenberg just misses out by an even closer margin. Magnussen misses out by a bit more. Hamilton was absolutely crossing every single finger that he could, and toe probably in the cockpit, and if he offered up a little prayer, it probably worked. By 1/100th of a second, he survives and he's into Q3.
Ooh, and it was a scruffy old lap, wasn't it, for Lewis? He was fighting the car all the way around, but he lives for another qualifying session. Just, as you say, by a fraction of a second, he's through. And both RBs are through as well, both Aston Martins up there, and Piastri abandoned his final lap. Lewis Hamilton track limits time deleted.
Yeah, but that was for a slow lap, so that's okay.
This was where we picked him up, wasn't it?
Yep.
Just wrestling the car.
Well, using all the experience that has taken him to 9 pole positions around this track, just to avoid a third Q2 exit of the season. Hamilton survives by 1/100th of a second for Magnussen, for Sargent, for Albon, for Bottas and for Hülkenberg. It was close, but not close enough. Norris and Verstappen separated by 0.2 of a second. Norris fastest.
That's all I got.
Heavily upgraded Sauber this weekend.
Traffic's a joke, honestly. No one moves.
But a tale we've heard once or twice from other drivers. Traffic for Logan Sargent, upgrades for Valtteri Bottas. Sadly not getting him into Q3, but there are two RBs in Q3 of Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. So, Laurent Mekies, whatever you did last night seems to have done the job here today. Well done.
No, thanks a lot. Look, it's a very good result for the team to have both cars in Q3. I mean, we'll see what Q3 brings to us, but for sure to have two cars there, I think it's only the second time this year. It's you know, it's a good recovery. We had a string of more difficult races after Barcelona, and then we were trying to build our recovery road, and the guys have worked very hard to understand what happened there and to get a few new things to the car, to get a better selection of what to run, and we are there, so it's good news. The weekend is still very long, but it's good that in terms of performance we are back into the sharper end of the grid.
Yeah, well done, congratulations. So presumably now you've got one new set of tyres you're allocated and one used for this Q3 shootout.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think we'll use the used. Let's see. So in theory you will just keep your new sets for the end, but you may see there is a very slight risk of another very light shower in 10 minutes. So let's see if it's going to mix everything up
No one
again.
moves.
I tell you what, that just got everyone's attention around the world. The weather report.
We will reset the
way,
times
first time
and
you've
go
got two
again.
cars
12
into the
minutes
top 10
about to
here
be.
Since 2018. So the success story continues. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers and good luck for Q3. Now, does anyone want pole position today, Martin Brundle? I only asked that question because pole has failed to win any of the last 4 Grand Prix.
Yeah, and it's actually the 4th longest run down to the first corner, despite it being a very relatively short straight. I think because the start line's very early on in the pit straight that was extended in 2003, believe it or not. 21 years ago it was actually extended down there. So it's a decent run down. It's a tricky old braking point, and as you say, pole position has not guaranteed a victory here at all, has it, in recent years?
No, exactly. Right. Ted Kravitz, Max Verstappen about to come out of his garage. Max Verstappen, who started the season with 7 consecutive poles, he's taken 1 of the last 5. And we found some batteries, and Ted, we've rebuilt you.
Yes, we have. Sorry about that. That'll teach me to stand out in the rain with my palm held up to tell you the weather conditions. But yeah, so new tyres for everybody that I'm seeing passing me in the pit lane here. The Ferraris, Hamilton, the last remaining Mercedes, Charles Leclerc, and used tyres for Fernando Alonso. And it was Aston Martin who I was going to give a report on, and well done to them. They've absolutely pulled it out of the bag. Maybe these conditions helping them a bit, but the you know, the abilities of Alonso and Stroll have done great to get them both into this session. As I see Yuki Tsunoda leaving the pits on used tyres as well. Williams feel that Alex Albon feels that he would have been in this had Williams put him on the track at the end of the session.
Make that lack of a toe count, Max.
Lack of a toe. Well, that is what will happen when you go out first. But Red Bull, it's not the first time they've done that, is it, Crofty? They do like to lead the way in this regard.
Yeah, but does he need a bit of a toe? Does he need a bit of a helping hand to try and get somewhere closer to the man at the rear of this 2 cars in your picture, Lando Norris?
Yeah, lack of a toe count. Obviously, he doesn't have a teammate to help him. And he doesn't even have his mate Hulkenberg to help him, who's helped him out with a few slipstreams in qualifying. So I think what Max has got there is a nice clear track, and they say rain in 5 minutes.
So if you were thinking, well, we've only got the 1 run, we've only got the 1 set of soft tyres, we're just going to leave it right to the end, perhaps not the best idea.
I think that what Lauren was trying to tell us without giving the game plan away is we don't want to be sitting in the garage with a brand new set of tyres we can't use.
Correct, and everyone is out on the track apart from Lance Stroll. Everyone is now out on the track as Lance Stroll has joined the other
The second
9.
run could be affected by rain, so this could be the one.
So there goes Max Verstappen then, no toe. but a clear track to himself as Lance Stroll makes his way around the first corner and keeps out of the way. How good is this time going to be?
Quite a lot of understeer turning into the first corner, and let's see if it's a little bit more obedient here. Downhill left-hander. Again, the front sliding across the track. It's not really, the front axle's not 100% ready to go. We might get some payback later in the lap, though. Over the blind crested four, throw it in. Incredible confidence through there. 5. Bring it into a very late apex where you kiss the inside of the racetrack and approach, and a little unloaded tyre over the curb. And he turns in from what's now a dry curve. Oh, now his front axle's really working. And off he goes. Let's see if he lifts. He won't lift through here. Does he lift through here? Yeah, a little bit. And downhill braking into T12. Down, down, down shift. Get off the brake pedal. Turn the steering wheel. Pick up the throttle. Straighten the car up. Brake in a straight line. Get all the shifting out of the way. And then eases, grab a bit of spare pit entry to help you exit that T12. We approach the line and Verstappen is on it.
Here's the time, 1:15.555 for Max Verstappen. Is that going to be the provisional pole after these runs? Piastri was about 3/10 down and finishes about 3/10 down behind Verstappen. Sainz was also down on Max Verstappen's time through the first 2 sectors and ends up about 7/10 adrift. Lando Norris is just coming through turn 3. Hamilton was a 10th behind Verstappen through the first sector, was pretty close as well in the middle sector, and goes 3rd fastest into the 1:15s and ahead of Carlos Sainz, whose teammate Charles Leclerc is having all sorts of issues making his way around the final corner. That didn't look steady, but does go 3rd fastest ahead of Hamilton.
My goodness, he made 5 corners of the last part. He was fighting the Ferrari so hard. What, in the hands of Fernando Alonso, can Aston Martin offer us?
It's been a while, hasn't it, since Fernando Alonso's been up there in the front 2 rows, and that is going to continue as he goes 5th fastest. But while that happens, look at Lando Norris.
He's flying along, fastest man through the middle set. He's been mighty through that middle part of the lap. Will the grip hold on? He's got a better chance today in these conditions. We've watched Norris coming around the last corner now.
Pole in Spain. He's had the rain to contend with today. In the dry, takes provisional pole by quite a large margin. Lando Norris back on provisional pole and getting a round of applause from the garage. That could be the lap that counts if the rain is coming in.
Yeah, that was a 1/3 of a second clear. They've been threatening to do that, haven't they, around here? That was an incredible lap from Norris.
This isn't a bad lap from Lance Stroll, first sector-wise. Middle sector, he's dropped a bit of time. Rain is starting to fall here. Daniel Ricciardo, 9th fastest, behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Stroll goes ahead of the 2 RBs and 8th fastest. Decent lap from him. Rain in a minute, but I think it's falling in the paddock. And as the cars get pushed back into the garages, that, Martin, could be it for the fast laps.
It could well be, but they're still getting very much ready to have another go. We've already seen once today the track can be very deceptive in how much grip it's prepared to give you, even with a bit of rain on it. Ted, what's it look like down there?
Yeah, it looks pretty dry in the pit lane, but you're spot on about the understeer on Max Verstappen's Red Bull. He's asked for 2 clicks, more front downforce, more front wing angle, Martin, for the next run. So they're clearly going again.
I wonder if Oscar Piastri needs a bit of that as well, Martin, as we saw on the replay.
Yeah, you could just see it. You just feel he was turning the wheel, was Max Verstappen, and the car just wasn't following the trajectory of what you expected from the amount of steering angle he was putting in. That horrible, understeer's a horrible thing, but we didn't see that much of Norris's lap, but my goodness, was it fast. So this is 1.4 seconds faster now than last year's pole position.
Look, and as he comes in, because he was one of the last guys to do a lap, others, I think we saw the Mercedes of Hamilton, and that was the Ferrari, and also Daniel Ricciardo in the RB going out for more laps. Oscar Piastri is one of them. Hamilton, Sainz, all coming out to see if they can get a lap in before the rain gets any heavier.
What's absolutely clear this afternoon, you cannot second guess this racetrack and how much lap time it will give you.
And there, Verstappen in the background coming out for another go with a couple of clicks on that front wing in his Red Bull to try and help his understeer problems. I'll give Lando Norris his due, though, after the bitter disappointment of Silverstone, where he thinks he and his team threw that victory away. He has rebounded back on the track in some fashion so far this weekend.
Yeah, is that a poncho going on? That's usually the best sign, isn't it? Maybe that's
one person says it's poncho time.
Ahead of the curve there, and even ahead of the rain. So plenty of time to go actually, in terms of getting out there and getting a lap done. But teams reacting to the weather forecast. 5 of the 10 on the track at the moment, including this man Lewis Hamilton, who I think's looked really feisty through this Q1 and Q2 and here in Q3, and he's been really jockeying that car along as well. It's not the most obedient out there.
9 Hungaroring poles, more than any driver at any other racetrack in F1 history. And if Lando Norris gets pole here today, that's 9 poles here at the Hungaroring for McLaren, who would tie Mercedes for the most in this venue's history. Here goes Oscar Piastri then, who last year came here for the first time, qualified 4th on the grid, never been on pole before, has made it onto the front row on a couple of occasions, and he's going for one more blast before the rain makes things a bit too wet to try and improve times.
Yeah, so a big braking zone down into 2, get the nose in, and this is what you want, absolutely flat out through there. You don't really want that car in your way approaching T4, but it's clear enough.
Ooh, first sector. Oscar Piastri has 5/100ths of a second in hand in terms of improvement over Lando Norris.
It's the middle sector that really matters, though, isn't it? It's a longer sector and full of corners. And Piastri then changing direction beautifully in that McLaren.
Hamilton matches him in the first sector. Sainz goes even quicker in the Ferrari. And now through to the next braking zone, Piastri 3/100ths of a second. That's all he's got to make up. But Verstappen has now gone fastest through that first sector, taking the charge back to McLaren again.
And Norris on pole at the moment is back out there too. But what can Piastri do in the sister McLaren?
As I said, 2 front rows in the pass for Oscar Piastri. Crosses the line, goes onto the front row for the 3rd time in his career. Can he stay there? And once again, saved his best sector until the very last. Hamilton crosses the line, improves, but only into 4th. Verstappen's lost a little bit of time in the middle sector, but he's still up by 0.03 of a second. Sainz goes 4th fastest, pushes Hamilton out of the front 2 rows. And here's Verstappen overtaking Lando Norris before Norris can start his final flying lap. Does he need to, though? Because here comes Verstappen, and there's a yellow flag out there, and Verstappen's only 3rd fastest. So Norris will stay on pole, and it's Yuki Tsunoda that's had an accident out of turn 5 and just before turn 6. Red flag, session over.
Well, they can get out of the pits and get round and start a lap in 2 minutes 13 because the clock stops. They can actually get out there. Do they want to? Have they got any tyres to do that? So Norris was going to get a lovely little slipstream down the pit straight from Verstappen as well. But he will not get a chance to show that now.
But it was also perfectly timed. Could have saved those soft tyres by not doing a fast lap on them, by waiting to see what Verstappen did as he crossed the line. The red flag, you're right, might have made things a bit interesting here. And once those tyres go back in the blankets, which they surely will do, we'll have a little bit of a delay before we get going again. Verstappen and Red Bull, Piastri and McLaren might want to come out again, but let's see what happened to Yuki Tsunoda. This is turn 5.
Oh, that's a big shunt. He just got wide.
Yeah. And no grip on that AstroTurf.
Sorry.
I think he just got a little bit high and wide and then ran out of tarmac and hit the grass. Something definitely has happened because it looks a mess, but he's wondering if he had some kind of car issue, but hopefully we'll go back on board with him. But I think he just got a little bit wide through the exit of 5 onto some track that's going to be dirty, maybe even a little bit damp, and then no way back into the field of play.
Wow.
Ooh, it's a lot of damage.
Great to see him out of the car. I hope he's 100% okay. Yuki Tsunoda climbing over the barrier, medical car deployed as it would be instantly, because the sensor would register the G-force impact as he hit the barriers. So the Dr. Ian will come and have a look at him, have a chat, take him in the medical car and away from the seam.
Yeah, I hate shunts like that. I've had one or two, and you just feel you've got everything under control. You're thinking about the next corner, but something you just drifted a little bit wide, or there's oil, or there's gravel, or there's a little bit of water, or whatever it is, and it takes you by surprise. It's like, wow, I've had an accident. It all happened so quickly.
Damage to the barrier looks superficial from here, but they will want to check it to make sure that the integrity of the structure is still intact. So,
I do not believe the race director can call the end of qualifying, Crofty. I do not believe he can call the end of qualifying. If there's no long-lasting damage to the barriers, for example, you can get out. You want to be at the end of the pit lane, mind you. You can get out and get round to start your lap.
That's a very good point. Let's go to the RB pit wall. Lauren Mekis. Lauren, thanks for joining us. First and foremost, we assume Yuki's okay. You've spoken to him. Is he fine?
Yeah, he said he was okay on the
They
radio.
are going to restart the session.
On his own, so obviously we'll be careful and do the checks that we need to check, but what we need to do, but he seemed okay.
Any idea of cause? Was it just wide and onto a slippery part, or what?
That's how it looked at first glance, but of course we will check very carefully if the car was doing the right thing at that moment.
And as for Daniel, had he started his flying lap?
Yeah, he had started his flying lap. He was turn 2, I think, when that happened. So, as you have seen, the session is going to be restarting. So we'll have a final go with Daniel, although it will be with the used tire, of course.
Now, we're assuming it's going to restart. No official confirmation yet, but I can hear cars already making it to the end of the pit lane.
Yeah, we have been told the sessions will restart, so it's going to be a bit of a shootout again.
Thanks ever so much, Lauren. Cheers for coming on.
Yeah, well, we can take nothing for granted, can we? Even on used tyres, with some commitment.
Right, let's hear from McLaren and the team radio for Lando Norris. Maybe we can't hear the team radio for Lando Norris. Shame that. I wanted to hear it.
But Max was quite agitated when he went over the line, wasn't he? He wasn't happy. It didn't look like a victory punch of the air. Did you see that? He looked angry about something.
Well, he doesn't. I don't think he's coming out.
No.
As he's getting out of the car, we've got no official confirmation as to what time this qualifying 3 is going to restart. The teams have been told it will, but we don't know what time. So let's hear that McLaren team radio.
They are going to restart the session.
Be aware that others may try and race you on the out lap, and we do want to start this lap.
Yep.
So McLaren locking out the front row at the moment, and they want to keep it locked.
Yeah.
That's what they're up to. They want to, you've got to be in it to win it, as they say. But at least you've got to be out there to defend it right now. Ted.
What are you saying, Martin? They want to spoil anyone else's chances of beating them. Of course they do. That's the name of the game. But Verstappen
what I don't understand,
this,
Ted. Why is Verstappen not in that queue?
Well, that's what I'm. As soon as I finish doing, asking you this, I'm going to get on to Red Bull to find out. There's no other reason. They've got some used tyres, but maybe he thinks, well, I've got no idea, but I'll go and find out. What I can tell you is that McLaren were absolutely quick to react. And they've just said, look, they are going to, as soon as they knew that it was going to restart it, then I saw a few seconds later, both Piastri and Norris passed me in the pit lane, go to the end of the pit lane, turn their cars off and just sit there. That's what they're doing at the moment. To their credit, Mercedes are also doing that. Ferrari were a bit late to cotton on, so they're the last in the queue. They probably won't get a lap in, but we will see. And we've got the medical car, which I think you can see on the bottom right of your frame there, not really knowing what to do. It normally sits, team radio.
And rain. So rain expected at 17:20, which is in 5 minutes time.
Dry at the moment. Yeah, so the medical car doesn't really know what to do. It's currently sitting outside the RB garage, thinking that it probably shouldn't undertake all these F1 cars.
Yeah, and I'm sure they probably have, but they'll be telling Norris and Piastri that Verstappen is currently spectating and not participating in the rest of this qualifying session. But I think unless the barriers are going to take a long time to fix or whatever, I think the race director has to let this complete.
Yeah, but I think this is, as we see the weather radar and the rain building up to the left of the Hungaroring. But this, I think this is very clever from McLaren. They've got the front row locked out. They want to make sure that the likes of Sainz or Hamilton, Leclerc, can't improve their time and get onto that front row or get onto pole. So, look, we're going to control the pace once the light does go green and make sure we get our laps in and make sure that others don't overtake us. And I just don't understand why a team like Red Bull, Martin, aren't in that queue, a team that normally get everything absolutely spot on operationally.
I might have misread it, but he looked angry when he went over the line. But Ted, you've got news.
I don't know why Max was angry, but the line from Red Bull is that they are reasonably sure, if not absolutely certain, that they will not improve their lap time on old tyres.
Priority here, Oscar, is on not getting any sporting infringements or penalties. So that means not excessively impeding cars in the pit exit.
What? But we want you to impede some cars.
That means take your time leaving the pits, but not to the extent that the stewards might get interested.
I suppose, yeah. I suppose, Crofty, when you look at it, just finally from me down here, when you look at it from Red Bull's point of view, they're not defending a 1-2, are they? They're trying to beat the 1-2,
exactly.
And if they're reasonably sure that they're not going to beat the McLarens in front of them, there's no point. But I guess, as you say always, Crofty, you've got to be in it to win it, but not if you're Max Verstappen.
But this is, I don't think realistically I'm ever going to win the Euro Millions, Martin. But I buy a ticket from time to time, just in case I can take you on holiday somewhere. It's that sort of hope and optimism that's kept me going all these years.
So what McLaren are trying to defend against then is a shock from the two Ferraris and the one remaining Mercedes, isn't it? Who are quite a long way behind them, it must be said, in terms of pace. So with Verstappen out of the car, and I can understand what they're saying, don't do anything wrong, but if they're going out to reverse the lot up to stop them from getting a fast lap in,
3 minutes, and we're going to get going again. Now, I dare say Lando Norris is going to get to the line in time to start his final flying lap before the checkered flag comes out. And I'd rather get the impression Oscar Piastri will do so as well. I cannot vouch for anyone else in that queue, and I'd be amazed. Is Lewis Hamilton third in that queue? I'd be surprised if anyone after Lewis Hamilton gets to the line in time.
Well, either that, or if the McLarens are too slow, there'll be 5 abreast going into turn 4 trying to get track position. So
this could be a race to the line, and as long as you get to the line before the flag, then you can continue on your way.
Spots of rain we can see in the camera. Quite a lot of rain, can't we, in the camera there?
And continue on your way, and it will count. Ted, what is the order down there?
Could you see it on the wide camera? So I can see. I think it's a McLaren, then a Mercedes, then another McLaren, and then it's. Oh, mechanics just stepped into the way. then it's Danny Rick, and then it's Fernando Alonso.
Right, so Lewis Hamilton is second in the queue. He'll get his lap time in.
Yeah, you know what that sounds like? The street outside Harrods, doesn't it? Basically.
A McLaren, an Aston Martin, and Mercedes.
Except no one's parked illegally, and the traffic ward hasn't put a ticket on. I always go in the front entrance via the tube. I've never parked round the back, to be fair. Right, 1 minute to go until we can resume this. And, well, has the track cooled down? No, it's got a couple of degrees warmer. Might make a slight difference. Is anyone out there on new tyres that haven't done a flying lap? But, well, Lando Norris is, but he's done an out lap and an in lap, and the rest are all just going to try and jockey for position and see what they can do.
Is this going to be the most disappointing 2 minutes in the history of Formula One? Or are we actually going to see something? Well, I don't know. But if McLaren don't get on with it, and everybody else is perfectly within their rights, of course, to thrash their car around the outlap as hard as they can. It all feels a bit futile, which is why Max Verstappen's currently out back and not in his racing car. But let's see. As I said, this afternoon, this track has yielded grip when we didn't expect it to on occasion, and these are dream conditions for a Formula One car going fast.
There's a green light. Lando Norris just trying to find first gear. They got it going eventually. That wasted about 3 or 4 seconds. Lewis Hamilton will wait for Lando to get far enough ahead so that he doesn't get affected too much. And they don't want to go too fast on this outlap, because then that does take performance out of the tyres. But as you say, Mark, they don't want to go too slow because they're going to get overtaken.
Well, they've got about 40 seconds of fat, haven't they, in the outlap, because it's a minute 15 when you're flat out. So that tells you. And what was there? 2 minutes 16 or something when they started. So yeah, for time they've actually dribbled out of the pits, about 40 seconds of hanging around. That's for the first driver, Lando Norris.
Yeah, I think they've all left in time to get to the line, but at the back, Sainz and Leclerc, Stroll, they're going to have to get a bit of a shift on here, and they're going to be very close to the car in front, which is not going to help them on this lap.
Yeah.
Out in front, though, gaps-wise, Hamilton has got a decent gap from Lando Norris.
Look how dirty it was where Tsunoda
went off. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
And Piastri's got a decent gap behind Hamilton. Ricciardo is pushing on behind Piastri.
Right, so they've all got half a chance from there, haven't they? But certainly Norris, Hamilton and Piastri. Ricciardo's quite close behind Piastri. Should get a bite of a lap.
Right then, Lando Norris. We didn't see him do a final flying lap because of the red flag caused by Yuki Tsunoda's crash. So here he goes to start this final flying lap then. And he really does have a clear circuit ahead of him. 25 seconds to go. And at the bottom of the queue, Carlos Sainz is just making his way towards the penultimate corner now. Norris is through. Hamilton is through. Piastri will get through. And in terms of getting through, I mean past the line before the checkered flag. Ricciardo and Stroll will definitely start a lap. After that, it gets a bit unclear as Norris continues on his way. Leclerc has made it to the line in time. Carlos Sainz hasn't.
Norris nowhere in the first sector, 6/10 off the pace of the absolute fastest, and still 4/10 off his particular first sector as well. So not a huge amount of grip out there on these used tyres that have been sitting at the end of the pit lane for the first sector anyway.
Carlos Sainz pits. Norris, Piastri, Hamilton all outside their personal best for the first sector. Ricciardo puts in his personal best for the first sector, but it's 4/10 off the very best for that first sector. I think we can safely say Lando Norris is going to take pole here because the rest are not getting anywhere near to the pole time of a 1:15.2. But can Daniel Ricciardo improve on that 10th place? Might be worth a couple more places for him. Norris pits at the end of that lap. Ricciardo sets a personal best for the middle sector, and he's the one that is improving. Hamilton continues, crosses the line. It's a 1:16.2. That is about 4/10 off his best time in this session. Piastri pits behind him. Ricciardo, I think, will take this corner and cross the line, and he does go ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. So it was worth him coming out. It wasn't really worth the rest coming out onto the track. And the good news for him, and the good news for McLaren, is that this is Lando Norris's second pole in 4 races. His third pole in his Formula One career. He can now add to Spain in 2024, Sochi in 2021, Hungary in 2024. There's your pole sitter, Lando Norris.
Well earned, and a front row lockout for McLaren as well. They've been threatening to do that this weekend, and they delivered through a pretty tricky qualifying session that started an hour and 25 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's been a while, but they've certainly come good in the end. And for a team, Martin, I'll say it again, major disappointment at Silverstone. They have bounced back in some fashion here at the Hungaroring this weekend. Verstappen starts 3rd on the grid. Sergio Perez starts 16th. In the battle for the Constructors' Championship, where McLaren are the team that are scoring the most in the last 6 races, I think it is, and who consider themselves to be the next best challengers to Red Bull. That's a very healthy advantage they start with to try and trim that lead.
Absolutely, and also in terms of team play and strategy tomorrow, 2 against 1, McLaren versus 1 Red Bull up there. The Ferraris and the Mercedes, kind of there or thereabouts, but they're lacking a little bit of pace, aren't they?
For Aston Martin, the decision to keep a couple of sets of soft compound tyres for Q2 paid dividends as they got both cars through into the top 10. And that's certainly a decent result for them, 7th and 8th on the grid. Sainz will start alongside Verstappen, 2 former teammates at Toro Rosso. Hamilton will start alongside Leclerc, 2 teammates for next year at Ferrari. And Ricciardo and Tsunoda will share row 5, 2 current teammates at RB who had both cars into the top 10 here for the first time since 2018. Perez, as I said, will start 16th. Russell starts 17th. Not enough fuel to keep going in that Q1 session as the track started drying out, and that's what cost George Russell. Sergio Perez made a mistake and crashed out, causing the first of 2 red flags in that qualifying session. I think we got ourselves a decent race on for tomorrow. Verstappen, the winner here in the last 2 years, neither of which have been from pole. One was from 10th and one was from 2nd on the grid, and I don't think you count them out. But that man there and his team certainly have had the race pace advantage in the hot conditions from Friday to make this quite a challenge.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I wonder if Max, when he went over the line, saw a 15.273 on his screen, whether he thought he'd done enough actually with his hand in the air like that.
We shall see. Here's your top 3. Alice Powell on the mic.
Congratulations, another pole position to add to the list. It was so close out there, real fine margins, so you must be over the moon.
I am, yes, very, very, very happy. Not an easy qualifying, different conditions, like you said, but always ending up on tops. The best part of it also. Happy, especially for the team. A 1-2 is even better to see, so congrats to the team.
McLaren are really cementing themselves as a front-running team. A lot of hard work has clearly gone on behind the scenes, and this must give you lots of confidence heading in tomorrow and for the remainder of the season.
I mean, it does, but we've already got confidence, so it's not like we need a lot more of it or we're searching for it. You know, I think we've come into this weekend and the last few happy and confident we can do a good job, and we have a good car to fight for pole, and that's exactly what we did today. So yeah, like I said, a great job by the team. We've been improving every weekend, and to end up on pole today is sweet.
And race pace earlier on in the weekend from the long runs looked pretty decent. It's going to be a slightly different weather conditions we're expecting tomorrow. So is that going to give you confidence either in the hotter conditions?
I mean, we're in the best position for whatever the conditions throw at us. So I'm looking forward to it. 2 cars at the front row, we can control it from there. So as long as we stay where we are, we'll be happy.
So you finished P2 here last year. You're expecting to go one more, clearly.
I mean, I'm expecting to. So if I don't, it's not been a good day. So no, the car's doing well. I feel like I'm driving well. So it's obvious what the aim is for tomorrow.
Brilliant. Congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers.
Oscar, a big congratulations, a big cheer when you walked over to here, a big crowd of Papaya fans here. There's a lot of support for you and Lando this weekend.
Yeah, it's cool to be here, especially when you get a result like this. I think the first 1-2 in qualifying for McLaren for a very long time. So no, very happy. Of course, when I miss out by 200ths, you think of all the little things you can do a bit better. But no, an amazing result for the team. We had a bit of a tricky day on my side yesterday, so it was nice to bounce back this morning, and then obviously this afternoon in quali. It wasn't easy. A lot of decisions on the fly, and yeah, to end up with both cars on the front row is an amazing result.
You said it's super close. It certainly was. Is there anything that you could have done slightly different out there? Anything sort of left on the table? Was there a small mistake along the lap?
Not really. The first lap, yes, but the second lap, honestly, it was pretty good. I've already seen where I was a little bit slower, and then you think, yeah, I could have done this a bit better, that a bit better, but no, still a good lap. I'm happy with my day's work, and it's a long run down to turn 1, so everything is still to play for tomorrow, and a lot of points are on the table.
So Lando's just in front of you. What's the mindset heading down into turn 1 tomorrow?
I mean, of course I want to get into the lead, but yeah, we have both cars on the front row. You know, we've got a big task ahead of us, trying to win this championship as a team, and we'll be smart. You know, we've got a very quick car. It's been working extremely well this weekend, and yeah, we want to keep it 1-2, and I think we'll fight amongst ourselves for who gets one.
Congratulations, Oscar, and good luck.
Thank you.
Max, well done. A bit of frustration there, though, at the end of that run, a bit of frustration over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I tried the whole weekend. I think we have been a little bit behind, and I think that was also the case in qualifying. I tried to make it as close as possible, but unfortunately, yeah, just not enough. Bit difficult to pinpoint why that is. Yeah, I would have liked a bit more grip, but it's not there at the moment. But P3 is still very close. I just hope that for tomorrow, of course, the car is good in the race, and at least that we can follow them and see what we can do there.
It is very close, a lot closer than we have seen in previous years. Are you enjoying having this battle with other teams joining you for that battle for pole position?
Of course, I love competition, but I would like to be on top of the competition. And at the moment, I feel like we are chasing and having a few more difficult weekends. But, you know, I don't back out of a fight. But, yeah, we just a bit of a tricky situation, I guess.
And it's a long race tomorrow. It's going to be a hot race tomorrow. It's hard to overtake here. Do you feel you've got the car underneath you to move forward?
Let's see. I mean, the last few races, I think, especially McLaren has been really, really good in the race, even compared to qualifying. So, of course, today was a lot colder than expected, I guess, with the clouds and a bit of the rain. Tomorrow is going to be quite a different day, and I just hope that will help us.
Great. Well done, Max.
Thank you.